Welcome everybody. Today I'd like to talk to you about the box model. And the box model is something that every web designer who does any work with HTML and CSS must understand. Sort of the basic here is that all block level tags are represented as a box with very certain inherent properties already assigned to it that we can take advantage of in style. So first of all, I should mention block level tags are tags like headers, paragraphs, divs, paragraphs, well, you said it, but not strong. So the strong is an inline tag, and this only is as wide as the text. But all these other tags like headers and paragraphs are going to be as wide as the full screen. And in order to illustrate everything, I have a browser open that has this web page, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And one of the things I want to point out is you'll notice here's that paragraph, here's a div, here's another div. And even though the paragraph and the two divs and that header one above it, even though they only take up a small width of the screen, they technically take up the full width of the screen, and they don't line up side by side. It's not the same with, for example, this EM tag. So the EM tag, no, sorry, that's a strong tag, and there's an EM tag. These tags happen to be inline tags, which is why you'll see red 5 standing by is bold and right next to some non-bold text, and this EM surrounds the force is strong with this one. So you can see those are inline tags, and so that's not the same. The other thing is I want to show you the developer tool, and I really like the Chrome browser, and I'm guessing other browsers have something similar. But we're going to go to the developer tool. And what I like about it is right here, I can select any particular tag and it will tell me it'll show me the box model basically. And I've already zoomed in on this so you can see. I can click on the header here. And you see on the left, you see some color coding. The blue represents the content. That sort of orangish color represents the margin. And if you didn't know that, just click the tag here and look over here. We can see a value here. This is the width of that header, header 1. And you'll see for padding and border and margin, this is the box model. We start with our content. We set the width on here. It'll be the width of the screen or whatever's containing it. Then we have padding. In this case, there is no padding, but there could be. And then there's a border, which, again, we don't have a border, but we could add one. And then finally, margin. And there already is a margin set. And so I want to talk about playing around with some of the box model. And first thing I want to start off with is that header. What if we don't like all of that margin? Maybe we think that's too much of a margin. Well, what we can do is we can go in and we can set the margin on our headers. We're just going to put a header 1. And we're going to set margin. Now, a couple things you're going to see is that there are a series of different margin-related properties. There's margin left, margin right, margin top, margin bottom. And I want to deal with the margin top. And right now you saw that was 16. I'm going to make it 10 pixels. I think it was 16. No, it was 26. All right, let's make it 15. Margin top, 15. Margin bottom, 15. Save our changes. Hit refresh. Notice it's a little tighter now. So you can play around and you can see right there, margin now says it's 15. So now what I want to do is I want to sort of target these divs because we're going to play around with this. And so we've given 2 divs with a class of box. And I'd love for you to follow along, and you can just pause the video here and just copy the HTML that you see, or you can even just put a very simple div, just one like this. So we're going to target that. Now, because it has a class of box, we're going to target anything with the class of box. We target it with the dot. We put on our curly bracket. Bam, there we go. First thing I want to do before I do anything else is I want to set the background color. So I think this will help us. So we're going to go ahead and put a bunch of C's there, 6 C's to be exact. Highlight it. Notice, there it is. We've got that background color. Couple things I wanted you to see is you'll notice there's not a lot of space above and below the text, nor is there much on the left. There is a lot on the right because that's the full width of the screen. Okay, that's our background color. let's go ahead and change that width now. I'm going to use 20 EMs. I want to make it not wide enough to fit all of the content, but wide enough we can still read it. And I'm going to hit refresh and now take a look at what happened. And I'm going to, you see I have this hovered, I have this selected now, so you can immediately see what happened. Now when I gave it a width of 20 EM, it just so happens that that's 400 pixels. And one thing is the EM, 1 EM actually we can find out what 1 EM is. We can just change it right here. Put 1 EM, and that's 20 pixels. So 1 EM is 20 pixels, but that's not always the case, because an EM also, we can do it on our margin. We can set a width of 1 EM, and that's 40, because a header 1 is taller than a div. Okay, so I just wanted to keep that in mind as we do this. Let's go ahead and hit refresh, because we didn't really want to do that. And right away, that background color, you will see that the width is set in the background color when we set the width. You'll still see that there's no padding, no border, but there is that margin. Oh, wait, that's our header 1. There we go. No padding, border, or margin. Let's work our way outward. I want to show you padding. And you'll see that there's padding without a left, right, top, bottom. Before I do that, I just want to go through and set the top, right, bottom, left. We're going to do this clockwise from top. There's a reason for it. I'm going to start with 0. And we're going to do padding right. And we'll put, like, I don't know, 15 px. Put a padding bottom. And we're going to give that one 50 pixels. And we're going to do a padding left of 150 pixels. Now remember, I set that width to 20. Let's see what happens when we add padding. See how much wider everything is? It had to accommodate all the padding, which goes to show that the width is the content, not the padding. So, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But it does make it a little bit more difficult, because we don't know how wide everything's going to become if we're setting all of these styles. But you'll see here how we set it. Notice how you can see there's nothing on the right. There's a little bit more on the left. And that's 15. And so just keep that in mind as we proceed to go. Actually, did I set the width on here? Yeah, I did 20 EM. Let's scale this back a little bit, so it's a little easier to see that now. And when I set it to 10 EM, look what happens with all of the padding now. We can see that there's, you can see it's a little bit more obvious that that's a smaller padding. And part of the reason why is that when I did it at 20, you couldn't always see, like, you know, one word fits in here, and in this case, box gets wrapped to the next line. And so the width that you set here does make a difference. The last thing I want to show you, though, is let's go back. Let's reset this again to a width of 4. We'll set it to 14 EM. And I want to show you shorthand, because shorthand works the same way, only now we don't have to actually write 4 lines of code. We can condense all of this into 1. And the reason why I did it, top, right, bottom, left, is it's clockwise starting from top. That's how shorthand works. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm going to stretch this over here. See this, padding, top, right, bottom, left, and the same values in the same order. I'm going to get rid of those lines of code, reduce it now. We're going to save our changes the old-fashioned way by clicking File, Save. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to hit refresh. Right away, you'll notice there is no change. That is shorthand. But let's mix this up now. Let's only give it 15, 50, and 150, and let's see what happens. So if we give it only 3 values, what you'll see is the second value is still on the right, and then it also gets applied opposite of that side. So the left gets the same as the right. So usually if you're not specifying a value, then the whether it's a vertical side or a horizontal top or bottom, then it will be the opposite side, so that it tends to do that. Let's just go ahead and test this out now. Let's get rid of the 150 pixels. So now we're just giving it 2 values. Hit refresh. Suddenly that's changed a lot. So you can see the top and bottom's 15, left and right is 50. And I would basically recommend you scale it back a little bit. Here's actually one of my favorite ways of doing padding. 0.5 EM, 1 EM. I like to give it more on the left and right than on the top and bottom. Let's do the same thing for margin. So we're going to go ahead and set margin. And this time, we're just going to set it, we're going to just set the margin bottom. Because if you look here, the only thing I want to really push away is the underneath in between these two divs so you can sort of see the difference. So we're going to give it a margin bottom, and we'll just go ahead and give it a 15 pixel bottom margin. I'm going to hit refresh. And you see how they kind of pull away from each other. In fact, let's scale it back to 10. And the last thing I want to show you is a thing called margin collapse. And that is, look at the paragraph underneath it. Paragraph underneath it has a top margin, as you can see, of 20. But you can see that that's going right up to the bottom of the other div. So you can see now that a margin, top and bottom margin, that's called margin collapse. And so what margin collapse does is it takes the larger of the two margins that are between two elements, like in this case, they look at 15, or the margin bottom is 10, and then underneath it there's a margin top basically of 20. 20 is the larger of the two, so it becomes 20 pixels apart from the two. It doesn't add the two together. We didn't even cover borders. So I think I'm going to add border in my next video tutorial, because there's a lot we can talk about with it.